Hello everybody. Today we're going to be installing the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde exhaust on my Indian Challenger. If you're not familiar with this exhaust, essentially you can swap different modes on this exhaust. So it can be quiet, like a stock exhaust when you want it to be quiet, but you can also open it up so to get more power and loudness and get that rumble that you want. So you get the best of both worlds if you want something quiet versus if you want some power. For this video, this is not really going to be an install video, but I will be kind of showcasing the steps to do the installation. They do absolutely recommend to go to a dealer to get this done, but for my own learning purposes, I'm going to try and give it a shot. Step one is very clearly just take the bike apart, take off the saddlebags, take off the exhaust shield, take off the exhaust. Basically just take everything out of the bike. Actually, before I do the installation, I should just do a quick sound check. So this is in the garage, so it's gonna have some reverberations. I know it should be outside, whatever. Now we can jump into taking this apart. Gotta take off the antenna. So to take off the actual exhaust, there's two 13mm bolts back here. There is a 15mm. The antenna is gonna be a 8mm. Then just pop right out. I slip the washers back on so I don't lose them. Screw, keep everything together. So now I can reach the second bolt with the 13mm. So now we should just be able to take off the exhaust. Lesson learned from the Indian Scout: if you're having a really hard time getting your exhaust off, I recommend turning on the bike for a little bit just to warm it up, but then obviously be very careful touching it because it's gonna be freaking hot. Yeah, there we go. Here we have the stock exhaust.
Later.
All right, so I have the right side muffler on and wanted to try and get that on, figure out everything before I try to get the left side on and do some recording. So the instructions, because there's no text, and this is, I guess, to prevent having a bunch of language versions. So here you can see there's these little diagrams of where to mount the cabling. So it comes with these little brackets. It took me a couple seconds to kind of look through and figure out where am I actually supposed to be mounting these things. So where do I mount this clasp to hold this up and everything. What I found to really work is just put on the muffler and then try to mount it somewhere and just see where it would line up with something. And then that's what I did for this side, and then I was able to figure out which screw I was able to put on, and that worked pretty easily. So I have the old hardware, I have the old clasp this is the stock clasp, put that back on, was able to slide it in, put the screws back in. Don't forget to use your Loctite, put the antenna back on, and I did also start to route some of the wires and trying to figure out where that's all going to go as well. So I am jumping ahead on some of these instructions, but that's just to help me figure out how do I route all the wires and everything else as I'm going to put it all in. So with that, let's go ahead and put on the left side. All right, so now we got the left side mounted. So now I know I need to use the 90-degree bend. Now I'm looking for something that's right around here to mount into. So I know I'm gonna need to use an OEM screw. This does look like it's an Allen key screw. So I'm just going to kind of see where this module, I don't know what to call it, see where this would line up and see what else I could potentially mount it to, and then see how I can route the cable to go from under the bike up and over. And this is probably where it does help to have taken off the crash guard and the side panel. I was able to work around it on the other side, so we'll see if we also get lucky with this side as well. I do see there is a hex screw right here, so I'm wondering if this is the one that... So there is a screw just right in there, hard to see on the camera, but I'm thinking that's the one that I'll mount on. So I'll have the 90 degree clip, and then it'll go screw in right there. And then once I get everything positioned, I'll go ahead and put some Loctite in here as well, just to make sure that everything is super secure. Because you really don't want this to come loose, fall out, and then just drag, and that's just gonna mess up everything.
All right, so I was able just to loosen the heat shield, so it's just these two clamps. So it's easy to just to move it to the side. So this is still very loose. The whole module you can see is this is hanging here, so it's gonna sit like that. And then I'll route the cable up through the bike and plug it in up here. What I'll do now that I have that on is I'll go ahead and put the Loctite on here. I'll go ahead and put the Loctite on this screw, as well as this screw right here. So that way everything is secured. And then I will go ahead and route the cable up. And then after that, go ahead and resecure the heat shield, and then resecure, you can see right down here, this is the 15 millimeter screw. Go ahead and tighten this one down as well. I've got the heat shield clamp back on, tightened down the exhaust clamp. I've tightened down all of the screws and all the brackets and everything holding the cables up. I routed the cable up through the side. So for the smart box control cable, you're gonna plug into this guy here. So then you can see this cable routes up here. I've tucked the smart box itself down into there. You can see the 2 pins are each plugged in. So the only thing left to plug in is this 6 pin, which I can't do yet because unfortunately I am missing the mode switch. So it was not shipped in the box. So this is as far as I can get right now. The nice thing is to install the mode switch, it's just taking off one of these bolts up here and sticking it on, and then routing the wire under the tank to connect to the 6 pin. But since I don't have it, not much I can do about that. So what I can do is just do some cable management, tie up everything, make sure that there's as little slack as possible here, because you don't want that slack getting down and then obviously dragging down beneath the bike. I was able to contact Jekill and Hyde. By the way, shout outs to Ed and Jeff. The customer support at Jekill and Hyde is phenomenal. Despite the quality assurance challenges I've had. And I'll talk about that in a whole separate video, but this is actually the second exhaust that they shipped me because the first one had some issues. And so now not getting some parts is also a bit frustrating, but you know, shout out to Jeff and Ed. You guys have been super helpful, and I thank you for the customer support that you've given me thus far. They're gonna overnight that switch, so hopefully get that in tomorrow, and then finally be done with this project. So we'll check back in tomorrow. All right, it is the next day. I was able to get the button to open up and close it down the exhaust. So I was able to route the cable to go under the tank and come out through the middle. So you see here we have the module, and it is connected to the 6-pin connector. So just as a quick recap,
The two 2-pin connectors, those go to each of the pipes. The 4-pin connector is what will connect into the module right behind here. And then the 6-pin is what connects to the button, and that is what lets you control everything. So now that we have everything installed, last thing we gotta do is do a sound check. And I hope everything works. So you can see here, one's for Dr. Jekyll mode, that one's closed. Oh, if you push it twice, that's dynamic mode, that's where it is half open. And if you just push it once, that'll go, so it goes from closed to all the way open, and if you push it twice, that's when it goes half open. So there is also a lawnmower in the back, so I might not use this footage, so we'll see if it gets picked up or not. Trying this again, I noticed after I went out and rode with the bike, the exhaust sounds a little bit different, so maybe it needed a little bit of a break-in period, but it sounds actually better from when I first recorded it. The exhaust is currently set to Dr. Jekyll mode, so it's going to be closed, so it's going to sound like stock at first. So I'm going to do stock, then Mr. Hyde mode, so it's fully open, and then the dynamic mode, so you can hear all three modes through his mode. So there you can see, it sounds pretty close to stock when it's closed, but when you open it up, it sounds fantastic. So everything does seem to work pretty well, thankfully. That was basically the install. Not as hard as I thought it would. Once you kind of think about it and start to play around with it a little bit to figure out the diagrams and where everything's going to be, tie it all up, really wasn't that bad of a project. So I think this is something you could do on your own. I don't know how that impacts the warranty, to be candid. I don't know how that impacts everything there. So with that, leave any comments or questions if you have them. And with that, be brave, do good, take care of yourselves, and see you in the next one.